Hi guys, I hope you had a awesome week of learning and that you are ready for an awesome weekend. I know I am ready for a little bit of relaxation. Hope you guys are too. So if you haven't already taken the Google Forms survey that is linked in Schoology, go ahead and pause this video and go do that. It's only a few questions. It shouldn't take you very long, maybe 5 minutes at the most. So go ahead, pause this video, complete that survey, and then come back and we'll get started with our journal entries. All right, welcome back. So for our journal entry today, we're going to be reflecting on setting. So there is a poem that I have linked in Schoology, and it's Denise Frohman's Accents. So what I want you guys to do is go listen to that, watch it, and then start in your journals, take about 10 minutes and reflect on the setting of that poem. So what are when you're thinking about the setting, things you can think about are what qualities about this setting make you think that that is the setting of the poem. How would you describe the setting? Just give me your reflection on the setting of this poem. Take about 10 minutes, write at least half a page. Today's date is Friday, November 6th, 2020. So go ahead and make sure that you date your journal as well so that when Mrs. Park collects them, she knows which day this was. So go ahead, pause this video, do your journal entry, and we'll come back and get started. All right, guys, so today we're going to be talking about the layers or dimensions of setting. So, what is setting? When people hear the word setting, they typically think of when and where a story or a text takes place. While this is partly true, it is not all of it. Setting is more than just when and where a story takes place. Setting actually has 4 dimensions, and they are spatial, temporal, social, and psychological. So let's learn something about these. Yeah, let's go. So spatial is your physical space. When you're thinking of spatial setting, you're thinking, where is it taking place? What does it look like? What's physically there? Are there lots of buildings, or is it lots of open fields and farmland? Is it a city? Are there lots of trees? What is physically there? And if you're in a particular building, what is in that building where the characters are right then and there? Is there a TV or a couch, or is it just an empty room? The physical space. And then you want to think about how that physical space, what's there, what it looks like, how does that impact characters or the community or the society, et cetera, et cetera. Temporal setting is time. So that is thinking about when is it taking place? Is it taking place in a particular era or particular season or year? Why is that important? Is there flashbacks going back into the past? Are there flash forwards taking you way into the future? Is it just in the present? Thinking about why the author might have chosen these particular temporal settings, and then how that might impact the community or these characters in your text. Next, we have social, which is your culture, your community, your cultural settings, your community setting, social settings, societies, all that. So when you're thinking of your social setting, you're thinking of what is society like? What is the community like? The culture, the belief systems of the people within that society, their values, what laws or rules do they have? What expectations are there of that society? what are your societal norms, etc. Thinking about those different kinds of things within that society and why they're important. Thinking about how these things within the society, the community, the culture, beliefs, blah, blah, how are those things held up in that community? Also thinking about how those things impact and shape characters. Are there certain rules that characters have to follow, or are there certain expectations of those characters, and do they follow those expectations and rules? Thinking about people uh, how are people different within that community, or are they all the same? And how do those similarities or differences impact the way that things within that community or culture or society are? Finally, we have psychological settings, which are your mental settings, your mentalities, the way you think about things. So when you're thinking about psychological settings, you're thinking about how characters within a certain community think, what they believe in, if there's a dominant religion, what is it? Why is that religion the dominant one? If there's not, why isn't there a dominant religion? Things like that, and how these things about belief systems and the way that people think, how do those things impact the characters or the community? So let's try it together. So we're going to take a look at Disney's Frozen. So we're going to look at the spatial, the temporal, the social, and the psychological settings of Frozen. So spatial settings, it is a kingdom. It's set in the kingdom of Arendelle, where Elsa is the newly coronated queen. They have a regular castle, and then later on, Elsa has her ice castle. There's the village within the kingdom. Within it, there are different kinds of trades that happen between the different nations of this world and the different states of this world. But Arendelle is also physically isolated. It's kind of on an island. It's surrounded by water and fjords. It's very separated from much of the world. You have these other kingdoms coming in for her coronation, but they all have to come here by boat because there's no way to get there by land. Temporal, it's spring, summerish. There's no real known year within this within this movie, so all we know is the season at the beginning, before the whole snowstorm happens. Although this snowstorm happens, it's still spring or summer. And we got to start thinking about how these time periods affect the story. So social setting, this is a kingdom. Elsa is queen. So there are different power struggles. So there's the power struggle between the royalty and the citizens, where Elsa is queen and she and her sister have been living as royals within this castle for, however many years, but everybody else has had all these citizens have had their own struggles. The difference between the royalty and the citizens, how is that life different? There's also the power struggle of who is deserving of the power. Is Elsa really deserving of that power? Do the citizens support her, or do they think that she is not fit to be queen? And that kind of changes throughout the movie. At the beginning, they're all very welcoming towards her being queen, and then they find out she has magic and they're like, ooh, maybe not. And then they're cool with it at the end. So it's kind of that's its own little mini arc in the movie. We also have the desire for power, with that power struggle, where Hans is really trying to, get power because he's 13th in line for a throne, and as his brothers marry and have their children, he's just going to be pushed further and further down his line of succession. So he's really trying to get his way. He's trying to find his way of getting power, and he thinks that's through Arendelle. Throughout this movie, we find out that magic is kind of a no-go. Magic is kind of feared by the people of Arendelle, especially when Elsa brings about the snowstorm. She's called a monster at one point by, I think it was the Duke of Wesselton. But that there's this fear of magic and that her magic must stay hidden. Then there's the other part of the social is the isolation of Anna and Elsa as children and Elsa's isolation as an adult. The princesses are, hidden from the world. Elsa's was to keep her from hurting anybody else, keep her hidden until she got her powers under control. And Anna was just kind of a collateral damage, if you will. But as they got older, Elsa's isolation just continued. And even into the fact after she became queen, when she ran off and isolated herself. And the psychological setting is that there's this fear of magic and there's a fear or distrust of anything abnormal, like magic. So this abnormal thing that Elsa has is something to be feared, not seen as a gift as it was at the very beginning. It's something that can be dangerous. So the citizens of Arendelle and the other countries that have come to her coronation are seeing all of this. Okay, so how does a setting and its dimensions shape or influence characters? So you can look at this through societal norms, through the expectations that society has, or a particular country, or wherever this setting is, what expectations are there rules or laws that have to be followed, and then looking at a character and are they obeying or disregarding any of the above? Are they disregarding societal norms? Are they following through with them? Are they breaking laws or just kind of disregarding them in general, or are they obeying them? And how do those norms or laws or rules influence the characters? You can also look at their behaviors. So how does the character act different in different settings? Are they going to act one way at home and act another way at school? Could be two different physical settings that you can think of, how a character might react and behave differently. So thinking back to Frozen, so let's start with Elsa. Elsa has magical powers. So her society is afraid of magic. Magic is kind of a no-go. It's very evident at the beginning when she and her father talk about conceal it, don't feel it, don't let it show. It's this idea that magic needs to stay hidden. It's not something that should be seen. She's basically isolated her entire life because of her powers. She has her gloves as this symbol of repression or suppression of her powers, trying to hide them and conceal them. The Duke of Wesselton at one point calls her a monster when he realizes that she has these powers and that they could be dangerous. She wants to be isolated throughout this story so that she doesn't hurt anybody. That's the whole point of her running away, is that she thinks that she's going to hurt somebody again like she did when she was a kid. So the song Let It Go, and the whole song of Let It Go is her letting go of her fear of her powers, but at the same time she still has that fear because she's running away. she's kind of letting go of the fear of what others think of her because now she's by herself. She doesn't have to worry about anybody else. So she's still following that societal norm because she has still isolated herself from society because of their fear of magic and the abnormality of her magic. She's also the queen of a nation, which is also an isolated nation. The nation is isolated just like she was. The gates and the borders were kept closed until Elsa became queen. So her nation is just another embodiment of her. When we look at Anna was isolated as a collateral damage type situation of her sister's powers. She was locked up in the castle just like her sister was. The only contact she had with people was through the servants that worked in the castle. So when it comes time for Elsa's coronation, she's craving and desiring attention and socialization. She wants to be a part of her community, especially when the gates open. She wants to keep those gates open. The song, the beginning of the movie, for the first time in forever, is all about her experiencing socialization for pretty much the first time in her entire life. She's also thinking that she has found the love of her life through Hans and that love at first sight type trope where she sees this person, she thinks he's handsome, love of her life. That whole idea of you can't marry a man you just met, but as Anna states to both people who have said this, it's true love, which is just her way of craving and desiring that attention and socialization that she did not get for her entire life. She desperately wants to be a part of her community, as is shown throughout this whole movie. She's also got this ignorance that comes from her isolation. She was ignorant to Elsa's powers, just like everyone else was. She didn't know they existed. The whole community didn't know that Elsa's powers existed. But her ignorance also leads her to respond to situations that might be potentially dangerous, like chasing after Elsa once there's a huge snowstorm. But she goes in the clothes that she left, or she was at the coronation in. She did not make the choice to put on warmer clothes before she left. Might not have been the smartest choice. But she also, left her fiance of 20 minutes in charge of her entire kingdom, which might not have also been the smartest choice, as we'll find out later in the movie. So her ignorance has led her to respond to certain situations in a slightly poorer manner. So thinking about theme within the context of setting. So how does setting shape and influence theme? We are constantly thinking about theme when we are analyzing a text. So theme with setting, setting is just another way of finding theme. So you want to think, how has this setting impacted the characters or their journey? What if the characters learned throughout the story through this setting? And how has the setting impacted the story itself? Theme, we're thinking about how we get to that message, and that could be through a character's journey, what they've learned, or the story itself. And the setting is just one more part of that, that process of finding a theme. So again, thinking back to Frozen, we have a theme that could be ignorance oftentimes compels one to judge others or a situation before knowing all the facts. So our good friend Anna here is a very trusting person because of the ignorance she had as a child. The only people she ever knew were people that she trusted, so she thought she could trust pretty much everybody. She trusted her kingdom to Hans after knowing him for like an hour, when she went to try and bring Elsa back to unfreeze everything. So Anna misjudged Hans by thinking he was a better person than he actually was. He had an ulterior motive to why he wanted to marry Anna and why he was so willing to just kind of jump right into this marriage. Completely different reasons. But he ended up being the bad guy. So Anna thought he was a better person than he actually was. So the setting of the isolation that Anna had led her to be more ignorant, to the way people can be, ended up being more trusting because of that ignorance, and things didn't really work out too well for her. She ended up thinking somebody was better than they were, and it didn't work out too well. Another theme for this movie could be that long periods of isolations sometimes instill a community mindset that is hard to break. So this relates to Elsa and the citizens of Arendelle. So Elsa was isolated for a long period of time. People had this mindset that magic is a no-go, magic is bad, we have to fear it, it's something that we have to fear. And Elsa had this same mindset. It was a community mindset. So she had the same mindset. And her isolation and keeping magic hidden just further enforced this mindset. Things happened. People see that she has magic. They fear it. They continue to fear it. She isolates herself further, comes back, saves the day. They have a change of heart after she saves them all. But before that, they were ready to fight because she had magic. They were fully prepared to take her down because of the magic she had. And that magic had no place in their world, their community. But it took a while, and it took her saving them for them to realize that, magic's not all that bad. So that psychological mentality that magic is bad influenced this theme, that, over time you can change it, but it'll be hard. So now I want you guys to think about Denise Frohman's accents, which we listened to and reflected on in our journals at the beginning of class. So I want you to think about how you can apply the dimensions of setting that we just learned about, spatial, temporal, social, and psychological. And I want you to think of how you can apply those dimensions of setting to accents. There's a graphic organizer on Schoology. It's an Office 365 document. So when you've completed it, hit submit. Their directions are in the document, but basically you're filling out a little table. You're going to talk about how the characters are influenced by the setting and coming up with a theme and how that theme is influenced by the setting. Once you've completed that, there is a remote learning Kahoot. There's a link on Schoology, and the game pin is also on Schoology, but it's also in this video. So have fun. I believe in you. I know you can do it. If you have questions, you can send me a message, I think, on Schoology. If not, I will make sure that my email is on Schoology for you guys to contact me, or you can ask Mrs. Park. I will see you guys soon. Have a wonderful weekend, and good luck. I believe in you guys.